Welcome to Real Estate and Murder, a podcast about real estate and murder.
I am Amy Brockbank.
And I am Sarah Brager. We are both licensed real estate agents in the state of Utah who have a common fascination with true crime.
We are here to tell you stories of murder amongst the real estate community. It might be an agent, it might be a client, it might be an undetected serial killer.
When it comes to real estate crimes, some are predators and some are prey.
We just want to issue a trigger warning. The content of these cases can be difficult to hear from time to time, and please listen with care.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Hi, Amy.
Hello, Sarah.
Hey, welcome to Real Estate and Murder, a podcast about real estate
And murder.
and murder. This is Amy Rose, and I'm Sarah Brager, and we are both licensed real estate agents in the state of Utah who have a fascination with true crime.
Yes.
So we're here to tell you some stories about murder amongst the real estate community, right, Amy?
Yeah.
Good morning, Amy.
Hey, Sarah.
We're recording again at 10 a.m. It's not really our jam, but, we're so excited to be here.
We are.
We love this part of our day.
We are.
Hey, Amy, what did you do in real estate today? I mean, again, I know it's early in the morning, but tell me about your week in real estate.
Yeah, I mean, the week was crazy as always. There was a lot going on. Today specifically, on the phone with the lender, I had to take a call as Sarah and I are trying to prep for the podcast with a lender to try to get a client pre-approved. So,
yeah,
I mean, we are really busy, right?
Really busy, rolling in it. Yeah. As real estate agents, we work on our client's timeline, right?
Yeah.
So when they call at 8 a.m., like, hey, I want to buy a house and I need to see it today, you're like, okay,
yeah,
we'll figure that out. Yeah, for
how
sure.
How about you?
This week was fantastic for me. I got a beautiful listing up and running for a client of mine. It's a fantastic house, 6 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, fully finished basement apartment. It's an awesome property. Yeah, it was really rewarding to get it up and running. We just wanted to make sure that the house went on the market in the best condition possible. So we went through and did some touch-up paint and some deep cleaning of carpets and some beautiful photography. And we got it listed, and I'm super excited about it.
I know you can add a painter to your resume now.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I definitely dripped a little bit,
Yeah.
but that's why I wore my painting pants.
Yeah.
Anyway, not a pro. So before we get into the case, I do just want to give a trigger warning for today. That trigger warning is about domestic violence. So just listen with care if that's a sensitive subject.
Yeah.
Right. Amy, will you introduce our case?
Yeah, I would love to. This is the case of Julia Deede Keller, who was a real estate agent in California and
Has a wild story.
Yeah, amazing lady, it sounds like.
Yeah, she was beloved, as a lot of our subjects are.
Yeah. No, we always start that out. I guess if you don't want to get murdered, don't be beloved.
Yeah, don't light up a room.
Yeah.
Don't be a pillar of your community. Yeah, so true. Okay, well, we're talking about the murder of Julia Deede Keller, and I'm going to refer to her throughout this episode as Deede because that's what she liked to be called. That's how she's referred to. She did also have a daughter named Julie, right? And so
Julie, and then her name was Julia.
Yeah, so in order to not be confusing, we'll call Deede Deede.
Yeah.
Now, Amy, we're going to do something a little new.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it, and you know about it. She's looking at me wide-eyed.
Oh.
It's not a surprise, I promise.
It's
but
early in the morning.
It is early in the morning. I mean, we're still developing this podcast and ideas as they come and go, and we're loving putting it together and cultivating it. But we thought it'd be a great idea to share with our audience a little bit about the local real estate market that our subject topic takes place in.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So for today's case, we are in El Segundo, California. I had never heard of El Segundo before. Have you?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about El Segundo. This is like the Southern California South Bay. It's a stunning strand of shoreline. And if you're familiar with these other neighborhoods, you probably are. There's Redondo Beach, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach. So if those sound familiar, that's right in the El Segundo area. That's what we're talking about. So we're south of LA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and people were referring it to as the sandbox.
Yeah, whatever that means.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the beach in general is a giant sandbox.
But maybe it's like less populated, less tourists.
Yeah.
Like local.
Or somewhere where people go to play.
Yeah, I don't.
All right. Well, it's the sandbox. There's beautiful beachfront properties worth millions of dollars. And it's just a beautiful little town, right?
Yeah. So
I'm going to tell you about it a little bit, starting with the zip code. The zip code is 90245.
Okay.
Not 90210. Close. Yeah. 90245. So in the El Segundo market, the average 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath home runs between 1.8 million and as high as 4 million. So I got online and did a little bit of research just, on common real estate sites. And I went with 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath home because that's kind of your average size home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 1.8 million and as high as 4 million. Now, of course, the closer you get to the beach, the higher that price tag becomes. So like on the inland part of El Segundo, so further away from the beach, you're in the $1 million, $1.8 million, $2 million range. The only home that I could find that was currently listed under $1 million is a fixer-upper 2-bedroom apartment.
So, and I don't know if you looked this up, but what do people do for work there?
Something with sandboxes. I don't know. It's a different world, right? And, because we're real estate agents, we interact with clients all the time that want to discuss what the average market price of homes here are, right?
And here's like unaffordable. People use that word, right?
They do. Yeah. And of course, like the market's been challenged in the last couple of years a little bit because we've seen some historical inflation issues, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the average 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom home here in Utah County, kind of where we're centrally located, $450 to $500.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, 500,000, let me just be clear.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a different realm. We're playing in a different market here. The median home price in El Segundo in general, so removing the 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom contingency.
Yeah.
So the overall median home price is 1.2 million with a median per price square foot. Are you ready for this? $887 per square foot.
Ouch.
Okay. And that number, 1.2 million, is different than the stat I gave above about 1.8 million because that includes everything from 1-bedroom condos to 6-bedroom homes. So it's a median of the overall market. So the cost of living index for the housing estimates that the cost of housing in El Segundo is 235% higher than the national average, which makes it one of the most expensive zip codes in the country.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
That's where we are. Which is ironic because 2 cases ago, we did Linda Stein, who was downtown Manhattan. Which is
Upper East Side Manhattan.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not get Manhattan mad at us.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And we didn't give statistics in that episode specifically.
But everybody
But that would have been fascinating. Yeah.
Everyone knows Manhattan is crazy expensive.
Yeah. This is its West Coast counterpart.
Yeah.
According to the RE/MAX website, there are 31 homes currently listed for sale in El Segundo as of today. But according to Century 21's website, there's 21 homes on the market today. So RE/MAX knows something that Century 21 doesn't.
Mix has some exclusive listings.
They sure do. And Deede's murder takes place all the way back in 2004. And we're talking about statistics in 2024. So we're 20 years later. However, you could still kind of compare, right? Comparatively.
I mean, beach property has always been
still $1 million properties.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about El Segundo. Now, within this local market, Deede Keller was known to be a rainmaker, according to our buddy Joshy Mankiewicz over at Dateline.
Yeah.
So she was well known in her community and very successful.
Yeah.
Right? Amy, will you tell us a little bit about Julia Deede Keller?
Yeah, of course. So Julia Deede Buchanan Keller. Yeah, Buchanan is her.
I didn't see that in any of the sources.
Yeah.
That's an awesome middle name.
Well, Buchanan was her, she'd been married a couple times. So that was like her birth name.
Oh, okay.
So was born on October 27, 1949, and she became known as Deede. And Deede grew up in the San Diego, Sierra Mesa area. Deede went to high school at the Academy of Our Lady of Peace in North Park, and it was a private all-girls high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I doubt that there was a whole lot of Lady of Pieces going on in there.
Probably not. She graduated in 1967, and classmates remember her as being outgoing and popular. Deede later moved to El Segundo to pursue a career in real estate, and she had a huge heart and loved everyone. She was a really nice person, very likable, and beautiful inside and out, is quotes from her friends and colleagues.
Aww.
So Deede had 2 children. She had a son, Mike, and a daughter, Julie. And her son has joked that once they left for college, her mom replaced them with dogs. And
fair.
I know. She was known to rescue dogs. She loved them. And at the time of her death, she had 3 dogs. And Deede had been married and divorced a couple times. And so that
no shade.
No. Yeah.
No shade.
So
speaking from experience, they just
Yeah.
get better as they go.
Yeah.
All right. So she was a beloved part of her family and her community.
Yeah.
So I do note in the Dateline episode, she does have 2 friends that are interviewed and that give some background and context. One is her best friend, mortgage executive Cindy Ertman, And the other is her real estate sales partner, Linda Dondero. So
Yeah.
they are here, and they probably gave some of those like very similar statements in the episode about how loved she was. Her best friend, Cindy, who was a mortgage executive, right? So we're assuming a lender. She was in the lending industry. Said that she was so easy to work with and loved working with her, which is a huge compliment, right?
It really is.
When other people outside of the real estate agent compliment how they perform on transactions, that's a huge compliment. All right. Well, that's what we know about Deede, but Amy, let's go to about mid-July in 2004.
Okay.
A parking controller in downtown San Diego notices a silver Mercedes parked on the side of the street with 2 citations in the window. So takes note, this car's obviously been here for a while because we've got 2 parking tickets.
Yeah.
So a quick search of the license plate reveals that the car belongs to a missing person. And so he immediately calls the police. Just a quick note, San Diego is 2.5 hours away from El Segundo.
Wow.
So we're a chunk of time and mileage away from our base of the story. The police get there. They try to open the vehicle through a few different sources. They can't get into it. And so they actually call a forklift. Yeah, I don't know what a forklift will do to open a vehicle, but that's the means they had to bring in. Okay?
I mean, I would think like crowbar first.
Sure. Yeah. Pop the lock.
Did?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But a forklift was brought in. And I mean, how many times do we listen to stories where the police are investigating and they're looking in a trunk and there's no body? There's a lot of buildup to what's in the trunk. But unfortunately, in this case, they do find a body wrapped neatly in a blanket, is what it says. So how did this person get here? Let's go back a few weeks. Let's rewind. So on the night of July 8th, Deede has a date with her new boyfriend named Bobby Lowe. He's a car salesman. So you've got a car salesman dating a real estate agent. You can imagine that team.
They are good at negotiating.
They must be. So they met for dinner. And actually at that dinner, Deede was being introduced to Bobby's dad. So that was a big dinner, right?
Yeah.
You're meeting the parents. She drank a little wine, Bobby said. So it must have been like a enjoyable dinner. And when they got home, she'd had a little bit of a lot of wine. And so she just laid down on the couch, and Bobby said she was starting to sleep. So I just kissed her forehead and left her there for the evening, let himself out. Okay. That night is the last time that anyone sees Deede alive. So that's July 8th. Okay. So Deede's friends, Cindy and Linda, they want to hear all about this date because it's a big date. You're meeting the dad.
Yeah.
Although Deede did pass away at the age of 54. So I don't know if I'd be too worried about impressing the dad anymore at that point. I'm sure she was just...
I just think, though, you're always nervous. So
yeah, of course.
Don't you think?
It was a big date. And so her friends, I believe it was Cindy, although I can't be certain because we were listening to this material, not seeing it, but says that she called Deede because she wanted to talk about the date. And Deede didn't answer. So that was a Friday. And then Saturday came and went, and she hadn't heard back from Deede. She called again. She wasn't able to get a hold of her. And then Sunday, she still hadn't heard back. So now she's in distress mode. The friend is like, something is not right.
Yeah.
Amy, you and I go one day without talking, and we're kind of like, that was weird.
Yeah.
So day 3, it would be like, actually, we have sent texts to each other before. Like, I need proof of life photos holding today's newspaper.
Yeah.
So, of course, they're very concerned now. So the friend calls Bobby and is like, Bobby, where did you see what's going on? And he tells her about the night of July 8th, where he left her at the home. So.
And had Bobby talked to her?
No, Bobby hadn't talked to her since the night. So it would be Thursday, July 8th, when he left her late in the evening, falling asleep on her couch.
So no one's setting off alarm bells. Like, I haven't talked to her either.
Apparently,
like,
yeah. And maybe that is a little bit of a red flag as the new boyfriend when you introduce your girlfriend to your father and then you don't hear for 3 days. Either way, it's Sunday and alarms are being set off now.
Okay.
And so Deede's friend, again, Cindy, I believe it is, or Cindy or Linda, calls Deede's daughter, Julia, and says, I haven't heard from your mom. Have you heard from your mom? Now, Julia isn't in town right now. She's in Mexico.
On vacation.
On vacation, yeah. In Mexico or on her way to Mexico. Either way, she's out of town.
She was in Cabo San Lucas.
Yes, that's right. And so Julia calls her brother Mike, who was also out of town in the last couple of days, but he's there now. So he was in San Francisco, I believe. So he decides to go over and do a home check because everyone's freaking out. Everyone's worried. So Mike gets over to the house, and outside the door, it sounds like before he even enters the home, he finds something very alarming. And that is the empty dog bowls. So like you mentioned, she had 3 dogs at the time of her death.
Yeah.
And so all of the dog bowls were empty from food and water. And this was a huge red flag to him because She loved her dogs, and she would never let them go without food and water.
Well, and it's a warm area. So,
Yeah.
that's a pretty serious thing to have your dogs not have water.
Right. So Mike is immediately like, now our spidey senses are spiking. He's very concerned, starts to make phone calls back, actually calls the police because they need to do, they're on the hunt now. They're going to do a wellness check. They can't find her. She's not in the home. And the police do find some very suspicious things in the home, right? Now, one of the friends that's interviewed says on the Dateline episode, I thought this quote was very profound. She says, as they're in the home, right, looking for Deede, by the way the TV was on and the shades were down, I felt like Thursday night had never ended, and I felt like Friday morning had never come.
Oh, wow.
So there's immediately like a very heavy sense of concern.
Yeah.
So one of the police officers at this point in the Dateline episode again says the most annoying quote that drives me nuts, which is, this kind of stuff just doesn't happen in El Segundo. I beg to differ. Okay. If you listen to our last episode, it happens everywhere, but he did that classic line. This just doesn't happen here, but it does. So
like
lies.
We talked about, like, how many stories are we talking about Detroit or?
Sure. Yeah. And this is a higher end beach community once again. So I get the feeling, I get the sense of why they're saying that, but it does happen. Okay. So here's what detectives find in the home. So there's her purse. Okay. They find her cell phone, but her wallet isn't there. They find a vodka bottle on the counter, which is usually kept in the freezer. According to her family and friends, that's where she keeps her liquor, which makes sense. You keep it cold. So it's on the counter. And then in the living room, the TV was left on CNN. And so the police, as they're talking to the family members, discover that whenever Deede left the house, she would put the TV on for a classical music station so that the dogs had something to listen to. Isn't that sweet?
That's so cute.
But CNN is on, which is alarming.
CNN is not calming.
It is not. To which I say, same. CNN would be a huge red flag if someone was looking for me and my TV was left on CNN, but not the vodka. That's not, same. That wouldn't be surprising. But there is one more really suspicious thing in the home, and that is her car keys. So her car keys are there, her purse is there, her cell phone is there, but Deede is not there. And everybody knows.
Her car is gone, though.
Her car is gone. Everybody knows that those are the first things that you take with you when you leave your home of your own free will.
She must have had 2 sets of keys, though. If her car is
she
gone.
must have. Yes. Potentially.
But just not the keys that had all the house stuff with them.
I do not know what else was on the keychain, but the car was not there and the keys were. Sketchy. Okay. So both of the children, so Julia and Mike, were out of town at the time of the murder. So detectives, immediately, they're starting to go over this case, and we're going to start investigating. We're looking for this missing person. And immediately, family's always going to be the first stop, right? The first people you talk to, also the first people you maybe question.
Or maybe the boyfriend who was the last person to see her.
Yeah, exactly. Bobby Lowe. So he gets a phone call from the police as well, and he tells them the same story that he told her friend, which, I left her the night of July 8th, late in the evening. He does say, however, when he left, now that I think about it, there was something a little odd. When I left, her dogs were barking outside as if they were seeing something. And then I discovered the next morning that my car had been keyed. Okay.
What?
And this is now we're into the investigation. So this is either Sunday or Monday, Tuesday, maybe let's consider it a few days after. This is just now coming to his mind that his car was keyed and that the dogs were barking at something when he left the home late at night on July 8th. Okay. So detectives do know, right away, that oftentimes people go missing or are murdered for their money. And so they look at the children really briefly, who would stand to profit if Deede died, which would be the kids, of course. They were going to inherit her estate. However, they were both out of town.
Yeah.
So the next person that they've got to talk to is her ex-husband, Erwin. And he had actually just flown home from his home country of Bolivia. So he's just now getting back as the investigation is starting, or he was out of town previously and is now just getting back as the investigation is kicking off. Right. So Erwin was a mechanic who worked for American Airlines at LAX, at that massive airport out there. And the detective thought, what better place would there be to hide a car than LAX? Yeah. So we're going to start investigating this. However, in the massive parking lot and all of the parking garages and the long-term parking that's around LAX, they did not find her car.
I mean, there's a lot of places to hide cars.
There are. Yeah. And that was the tie, though. Erwin's a mechanic that works at LAX. And so they immediately, get a little bit of a sense to go check that out. But the car isn't there.
One of the things I found interesting listening to the podcast that Dateline was the fact that one of the police officers said that when someone goes missing, sometimes people will leave town to pretend like they're off doing something.
It's like a cover-up alibi.
Yeah, which I was like, that's weird.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like for people that do commit murders, right? They're often scrambling and trying to like pick up the pieces as they go. It's not necessarily premeditated every time. But in this case, Erwin, Julia, and Mike are all out of town.
Yeah.
So where do we look next? Now, we know that her Mercedes is in San Diego.
Yeah.
Okay, 2.5 hours away. So how did it get there? We're going to find out. But Amy, I'm going to take a quick break and ask you if you would tell us a little bit about Erwin and Deede, about their relationship. We know a little bit about her current boyfriend and her kids, but tell me about Erwin and Deede.
Yeah. So Erwin and Deede, they kind of met in 1997. He was a real estate client, which is why I say kind of met, because they could have like been introduced before, but
So it was like a meet cute. They kind of coincidentally met because he was a client. Okay.
Yeah. So, and like you'd mentioned, he was originally from Bolivia, airline mechanic. She had just gotten out of a long-term relationship and it had ended. And so they meet and he just showers her with love and affection. And everyone just said that he just treasured her. And after she had kind of ended that long-term relationship before 97, she had told friends that she didn't really think that she was going to date anybody else unless like she just trusted them.
The perfect guy came along.
And then he comes in the picture and it is just, he just adored her. Her friends say that he treated her like a queen. And so he ended up popping the question and she had a bridal shower by March of 98. So this is happening like super quick. They had a really quick engagement. They were married less than 6 months later. But they were like, all the smiles kind of faded. And Deede had confided in them that she felt like she jumped into the relationship and he was like a rebound.
Wow.
But they ended up staying married for like 4 more years after she had that conversation. And so.
Wow. So they met, they got married within 6 months. And then immediately she's feeling a little bit of regret.
Yeah. 6 months after their engagement.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
I see. All right.
So, yeah, I mean, it was just, but I think we all like can have like second thoughts about certain relationships or whatever.
All the time. Anyone who's married that says they've never had a second thought is lying to you.
Yeah, for sure.
It happens. It's the nature of relationships, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
So, it could have been that she was just, they had had a fight or she was just like feeling like, grief over her previous relationship or something.
Sure.
She just disclosed that to a good friend. Who knows?
Okay. And then they still stayed married for another 4 years.
4 years. And their divorce, it was pretty amicable. They divorced in 2004 and that's when she started. A year after they divorced. So they divorced in 2003 and then she met Bobby Lowe in 2004.
So she's out of a marriage and now she's dating a new guy, Bobby, that she's excited about. And Erwin is still fresh off the divorce.
Yeah. I mean,
recent.
Yeah. It's a year. She waited a year, and then in summer 2004, she started dating.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a little bit about their relationship. So let's fast forward to our scene in San Diego. So now we're going back to the middle of July. A body has been discovered in the back of the trunk that belongs to Deede. Deede was 54 years old and she was found. She's obviously the body in the trunk and she was asphyxiated. So she was strangled. Okay. So before we carry on and get a little bit more into the details of the case, we're just going to take a quick break. Let's take a quick breather.
Okay.
All right. Be right back.